Let's begin. I want to introduce myself. My name is Andrew Pla. I'm the Dean of Advising. I oversee the Berick Center for Student Advising, and I'll let my two colleagues introduce themselves right now. We'll start with Angie. Angie, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Angie Carillo, Associate Dean in the Berick Center for Student Advising, and we look forward to welcoming you all on campus soon.
Hi there, I'm Megan Rigney. I'm also an Associate Dean in the Center for Student Advising, and I oversee pre-professional advising and academic support, and I'm excited to help you get to know a little bit about those services.
Just to give you a little bit of a rundown, we have a brief PowerPoint to go through, and then Angie will be sharing, and then we will then go answer any questions you logged into the Q&A function. So from my understanding, the chat is not available to you, but you can log in questions in the Q&A part of the of the options available to you, and we will address those questions either write an answer during the course of the presentation, or we will address them live once we get past our PowerPoint. Once again, I want to welcome you to the presentation for the Berick Center for Student Advising. This is a picture of our main administrative area. It's a very beautiful space, and we are located on the 4th floor of Lerner. It's over a block long, and hopefully many of you will be able to visit us during NSOP or the early part of the year and get a sense of what the space is like. So I just want to talk a little bit about the general structure of the Center for Student Advising. But before I do that, I want to also talk about the advising structure in general at Columbia College and Columbia Engineering. The way the advising works here is divided in between the faculty and the professional advisors in the Center for Student Advising. Now, the faculty will focus on their own academic specialties, the majors. So if you have questions about what courses to take, what courses can count to the major, research opportunities, and if you're interested in going to graduate school in that particular field, they are all available to you. So the faculty will focus on their area of specialty. So questions about the major go to them. And we in the Center for Student Advising do everything around the major. And you may wonder, well, what's around the major? Well, there are lots of different questions, and we'll get into more about that later in the presentation. But just to give you some idea, we will talk, you can, if you have questions about registration, the nuts and bolts questions, course planning, long-term planning, that would be where you would talk to your Center for Student Advising advisor. We have to implement and oversee multiple academic policies. So if you have any questions about, the drop deadlines, going over points, various different policies that might have an impact on your studies, that your Center for Student Advising advisor is a resource for you. We also oversee your overall progress towards the degree. So if you have questions about how you're moving to the core, or if you're an engineer, your first and second year requirements, we are there to help you figure that out and make sure you're on progress to graduate within 4 years. And another role we play is also just to help you navigate Columbia altogether. It's a small campus, relatively small campus, but can be a very confusing place because organizationally there's a lot of different lines here. And we can help you navigate that and also connect you to critical resources. For example, the fellowship office, financial aid, the Center for Career Education, or the Undergraduate Global Engagement Office, which oversees study abroad. So these are offices you may not be aware of right now, and you may not necessarily know who to talk to about study abroad. But if you talk to your advisor in the CSA, by the way, that's what we call the Berick Center for Student Advising. We use CSA all the time. So if you hear the word CSA, that means us. Or if you see it, because it's often in the bulletin, we're always referred to as a CSA. Anyway, we're here to help you, and we're held to navigate. And so anytime you're not sure where to go, your good starting point is talking to your advisor in the Center for Student Advising. And as our mission statement says, we're here to basically help you get the most out of your education at Columbia. So we want you to take advantage of every opportunity that comes up, but you have to be aware of these opportunities. And some of this is that we will be helping you learn about them, figuring out where you can find information, and hopefully connect you to the resources you need. In terms of commitment, you have an advisor in the Center for Student Advising for all 4 years. You don't necessarily have a faculty advisor for all 4 years. You make the connections to the departments when you declare your major. For engineering, that's in the third term of the fall of your sophomore year is when you declare. And for college students, it's in the spring of their sophomore year. This does not mean you cannot talk to faculty before that. You certainly can. In the college, the main point of contact is the director of undergraduate studies for the department. That's a faculty member who has a role to oversee the progress of any undergraduate in their department to completing their major or minor. In engineering, they use different terminologies for the departments, but they have faculty who form an undergraduate advisory committee who are your point people for those kinds of questions. So you certainly can connect to faculty before you declare your major, but your formal recognition of who your faculty advisor is will come when you declare. Now, in terms of back to the CSA, we are 37 people. As it's outlined here, 29 are in the advising capacity, 8 are in administrative capacity. We come from a lot of different backgrounds in terms of our academic backgrounds. Many of us have a PhD in different fields. Others have like a counseling background. Some have, many have degrees in higher education. And I think our diversity of academic background is one of our great strengths because we as colleagues can consult with each other when we're dealing with different questions or issues that the students raise. And that way we can draw upon our variety of academic experience and knowledge. Let's move on to the next slide. And I'm going to turn over to Angie Carrillo, who will now talk about what the students have to do and what we have to do. And I'll be back. I'm going to turn off my camera for now, but I'll be back later.
Thank you, Andrew. So I did want to just talk through what we believe is a strong advising relationship. The advising partnership is one that both the student and the advisor must help to cultivate. And so when we reach out to you as students, we expect that you will reply back to our emails. We send emails throughout the course of a semester to initiate contact. You already, as Andrew mentioned, received the information, the contact information regarding your assigned advising dean from the Center for Student Advising. So your CSA advisor is ready to meet you for the initial conversation in the next weeks leading up to new student orientation. And so that's just going to be the first intro meeting, but one of many, many more, we hope, in the future. And we hope that you will do your best to do your part and engage with us as well. We refer students to various campus partners, depending on the questions that students have. We can research these questions and answers together. We talk through with students about their short-term and long-term goals. Sometimes students come in without knowing what they want to study, and that's quite all right. That's a majority of our students do come undecided, and we help them through by creating a plan in terms of courses to be taking or faculty to be talking to or other colleagues across campus to help make such decisions. So like I said, we research answers together. Upon referral, we hope that you can then follow back up with us to tell us how your conversations with our partner offices went, to see if there's any additional questions that we may work through together. And just to continue to build on it. So initially, right, it may be a little uncomfortable, of course. It's just, it's kind of like a formalized structure. You think that we're like these serious administrators on campus, but all of us are just humans just like you. We really want to make these strong connections with you that will last throughout the 4 years, but maybe even longer, right? Like Andrew and Megan, we have all been working here for years and years. And so we've formed connections with our current students as well as our alumni, right? So being that in December, I'll be here for 21 years working in the CSA. And that means that I've formed many, many relationships with great students and beyond their 4 years. For instance, Jackie Dubrovich, sorry, you may have seen, she's CC class of 2016 who just won gold for team competition in fencing. She was my advisee. I messaged her yesterday to congratulate her and tell her how much we're so proud of her and happy for her and cheering her on from here. So we look forward to making stronger connections from here on out. And please know that you can turn to us for anything. And we would, even if we don't have the answer, we'll find the answers together or work through who we can utilize on campus and off campus as resources to get you to the answers you need. We're going to go to what types of advising conversations we'll have, and I'll turn that back to Andrew.
So as I mentioned, we talk about a lot of different things with students. These are only some examples. But I do want to just reiterate that essentially you can go with any question you have to your advisor because we are here to help you. And you may not know what resources to connect to. So if you have any kind of question, any kind of problem, always talk to your CSA advisor because we can connect you to resources if we cannot actually answer your question directly. But from an academic perspective, we do a lot of different, we advise students about a lot of different things. It can be something, like your course selection for your first semester. Some of you may have already met with your advisor already. This week is when advisors are reaching out to their newly assigned advisees to indicate when they're available before the new student orientation program. I've already met with 7 of mine in the last 2 days, so hopefully I'll meet with the rest of them in the weeks to come, and that we can have a conversation about your first semester. The goal of your first meeting should really be focused primarily on your first semester or on your first year. You'll have opportunity later to talk more broadly about your academic plans, your what you want to do over your 4 years. You're not limited to your one conversation. You're limited to the way the system works. We log in, or we have an advising appointment system where people indicate their availability, and if an advisor is available, you can make an appointment and talk to them. So academic planning is a key thing we deal with. Sometimes it's questions about selecting a major or concentration. Concentration actually is, we have to edit that out. That's no longer available to college students. It's majors only now. It used to be that college students could do a major or a concentration, but there's been a change in the curriculum where students will only have to do a major. And with the other new addition to the curriculum is the introduction of minors. So this is the first academic group, which will have the option of doing majors and minors. The minors will be introduced when the bulletin goes live, which will probably be in the next couple of weeks before this ends up. But if you have any questions about minors, you can certainly also ask your academic advisor, because we have information about that. We can at least tell you which minors have already been approved, so you can keep them in mind as you go along. But I should let you know that in terms of minors, there's many that have been approved, but that doesn't mean that it's all that's been approved. There's others that can be, or departments are currently trying to put together a program for a minor, and they will be approved in course, so the list of minors will only grow. But these are conversations you can have with your advisor. Now, some of you may come in, you're already determined and know exactly what you want to do. And the question might be, well, how do I get into the introductory classes? How do I start my major? When's a good time to start taking courses for it? That's a conversation you have with your advisor. The other question might be, I'm not quite sure what I want to do, and how do I want to explore different majors I'm keeping in mind? And that's another part of key conversation you can have with your advisor, because we can talk to you about, how to make these connections, other resources that might be you're not necessarily taking a course, but going to a departmental open house, hearing about presentations about what they have to offer within that department. These are all, any information you can gather will be helpful in making that decision about what major you ultimately want to pursue. And you shouldn't come in thinking you have to do what you indicated on your application. We have over 50% of students in the college do something different than their first choice major in what they've indicated on their application. They may do their second or third choice, but they don't necessarily do their first choice. And engineers, it's a little over 50%, about 50% stay with their first choice major, but they're certainly shifting around amongst engineers as well. The other key thing we can do is help you connect to faculty. Sometimes students have, they're a little bit intimidated by their instructors. They don't know exactly how to, utilize office hours, how to approach their instructor. We can help guide you on that, and we can have conversations about that, reassuring you that your faculty are human too, and they love to talk about themselves and what they're doing. And that's often a good entry point when you're talking to your instructors, is really first asking them about what they do. What is their area of specialty? What made them choose this field? because anything they offer about their life, their life path can help you shape your life path. We will also help you talk, these other resources I've already mentioned in passing. The Undergraduate Office of Undergraduate Global Engagement is the office that oversees study abroad programs. They have a very informative website, a lot of information you can learn from that. But you want to know exactly who to talk to, which programs make sense, when do students normally take a study abroad, and it varies. For example, for college students, most students who study abroad in a academic semester will be their junior year. It'll either be fall and spring. Majority do it in the spring. In engineering, though, it's a little bit different because the junior years is when you're really going in depth into your major, and the structure of those majors often mean that you have to be on campus to take those courses. So engineers, typically they tend to study abroad in their sophomore year, generally the spring of their sophomore year. But those, again, are points of conversation you have with your CSA advisor, first about when it was a good time to do it, and then you can connect to the study abroad office. The second, office that you will often be involved in a lot is the Center for Career Education, how to connect with them. A lot of students, again, there's a very informative website, but a lot of students necessarily know how to find them, how to make appointments with them, so they can use us as as a resource, and we can guide you about, okay, this is how that office works. This is how they have resume workshops. They have a lot of different workshops that help you construct your profile. They'll talk to you about interviewing. They have mock interview opportunities with them. So there's a lot of things that they offer, but you have to, you may not be aware of it. You may not know how to find them. And that's where we can be very helpful. Now I'll turn this back over to Angie, who will talk about other kinds of conversations that we have.
All right. Andrew went over just referring our students to the Center for Career Education very well. So beyond just talking to students about their courses and planning, their major and minor, we do help students talk through internship and possible careers, uh, life beyond undergrad. And so again, the resources that are provided from the Center for Career Education are super helpful. And so we refer our students there even as early as first year, which is not too early. And this resource, Career Services, is available to them even as alum, right? So as students may go into their first career after we've planned and they've made it to finance, let's say, maybe they didn't like finance. So they can then still interact with their colleagues here in the Center for Student Advising, for sure, in the CSA, but also our colleagues in the Center for Career Education to work through what their next career steps are. We also talk to students about any academic challenges they have. So they may have initial issues with grades in the beginning. They may have gotten their first B. And so we talk that through with them. It is not at all life shattering. And so we try to help minimize the stressors in any way we can to help them understand that that's just one of many, many grades that they will receive in a particular course. We will also help them navigate conversations they may have to have with their professors or their teaching assistants, their TAs, about maybe their grade, or maybe needing extra time to submit a paper or a homework problem set, a project. We help them try to figure out how to best articulate and communicate with them in any way. We connect students with tutoring that we have on campus. Megan will talk through those types of resources in a bit. And we also sometimes have to help students discuss the option of dropping or withdrawing from a course if it ends up being that they aren't doing that well in a course, or that they're already taking a full course of, like, say, 5 courses, and they just want to make it a little more manageable. So by dropping one and just focusing on the 4 classes that they feel most strongly about, then we can hopefully be able to drop a course or withdraw from a course at a given time in the semester, and then just make up for it in the future if necessary, or if 5 just seems like extra anyways, then we understand that to try to do it and then determine that it's best if you drop down to 4. Those are the type of conversations we have with students. We also have grading option conversations. So students have the option to either pass-fail a course or pass-fail a course in engineering, or PDF a course in the college. And we have to work through like what courses are allowed to have this grading option be utilized. And so that is super important to connect with your advising dean regarding that. There is a late deadline to determine which of your courses you would choose to pass-fail or pass-fail. And we will continue to communicate with students when those type of deadlines are approaching so that we can have the conversation well before a decision has to be made. We also help students with challenging issues in their lives, right? So even though like our primary responsibility is to help students with their academics, we know that the whole student is affected by everything else that is going on in their lives. When they may have family issues or financial issues or psychological issues. And we also refer students to particular services in Columbia Health, such as counseling and psychological services, or to see somebody in John Jay, which is our medical services office. Sometimes if there's roommate issues, we do refer the students directly to their RAs in their residence hall to be able hopefully to settle the conflict that they may be having with their roommates. So those are just a few of the things that we hope that students connect with us about that are affecting their academics. And lastly, I want to talk through just time away. So some students do have to take leaves of absence. So we have various types of leaves. Some students have to take military leaves for a year or two, or religious leaves of absence, or there could be health reasons for whether it be their own physical or mental health as a student, or if it's a parent or another loved one's health. There is a family emergency leave that students possibly can take. And there's also voluntary leave. So some students just want to take a little pause in their Columbia journey, and they can to do whatever they would like, whether it be if they have the opportunity to travel out, without having to worry about school, or if they want to take a job full time and then come back. Sometimes our students are part of startups. And they do take a pause in their education and then come back after a year or two, depending on the type of leave in the school. But you work that all of the details out with your advising dean. Now I'm going to turn to Megan.
Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Megan Rigney, and I oversee some special programs within the Center for Student Advising. I'm going to talk first about pre-professional advising. So pre-professional advising is defined as pre-health advising, as well as pre-law advising and pre-business advising. So essentially, we're helping to prepare students to apply to professional school once they graduate from Columbia. I think it's also important to know that you don't have to go straight on to professional school, and many of our students don't. Many of them go off in the world and work and decide that at a later point that they want to head on to law school or maybe head on to medical school. And our advisors are here for you for life, right? So whenever you make that decision and you want some help to be preparing for those application processes, which can be pretty in-depth and competitive, we're here to help you. But we're also here for you during your academic time. So particularly for students who are applying to medical school, where there are some academic requirements and thinking about planning for that curriculum, students can meet with a pre-health advisor and talk through that, sort of from, as early as their first year and again, all throughout. And we really encourage that. So, pre-med advisors or pre-health advisors are secondary advisors to your main advisor. So we don't get assigned a full cohort, but any student can meet with a pre-health advisor at any time, and that's always available to you. So you'll be able to schedule those appointments with one of us through the same system where you schedule with your regular CSA advisor. We, work closely with your CSA advisors. We're always talking about individual situations, and we're helping the CSA advisors to understand the pre-health curriculum. So it's really great that we all sit in the same space and work together. I also oversee academic support resources within the Center for Student Advising. And that includes a peer tutoring program, which is free. We offer peer tutoring in a lot of the, sort of introductory science and quantitative courses. We also have a peer, what we call academic skills consulting program. And so it's like working one-on-one with someone, an upperclassman who's sort of been through it already, to talk through things like, how do I manage my time? Or, gosh, I didn't really develop the greatest study habits during my high school experience, and now I'm struggling a little bit to figure out how do I best, balance writing, all this reading that I have for one class and the problem sets that are coming due, and what's the best way to manage that, and really having access to a junior or senior who's already been through that experience. The peer consultants also will work with students on things like sort of time management. How do I put all this into my calendar? How do I figure out, sort of making time for myself? And there's so much here going on that I want to take advantage of, but I'm really finding it hard to sort of fit it all in. And again, many of those students who have come before you have been through those struggles, and they're there to try to help you, manage it. We also do sort of workshops, one-off workshops. So if you're not comfortable or not ready to meet with somebody one-on-one with your questions, and you just want to learn a little bit more about the academic resources, we do workshops. So for example, one of the first workshops we do is goal setting, right? Thinking about, well, what is it that you want to achieve this semester, and thinking about setting those goals. Another workshop that we do is getting to know the academic resources that are on campus, right? How to best use the library, or what are office hours all about? Everybody's talking about office hours, but I'm not really even sure how to approach that. And so, there are workshops and things that are presented by some of our peer consultants that will help you to become sort of more familiar with the college life in the academic realm. And then the last thing that we do, which I think is really cool, is a getting things done sort of support group. And this is a support group that, people are coming together to say, gosh, I'm really struggling with procrastination. I have so much on my plate. I have a lot that I want to get done, and I'm not sure how to do this. And so it's a weekly group that meets together that, sort of challenges one another, that serves as accountability partners to one another for, and we talk about best practices. What are some of the kinds of things that you might be doing that you might want to try that would be new to help manage your sleep schedule, to get you, on a better schedule so that you can, sort of build in that fun, because fun is also a really important part of your college life, but it needs to be a balance with your academic requirements. So that's just a little bit about some of the additional complementary services that I oversee, and really excited to take your questions and get to meet you, when you're on campus in a few weeks. Thanks. I'm going to turn it over now to Andrew to talk about the First and Family program.
There are various different programs offered from the Center for Student Advising, but I just want to highlight one. This is the First and Family. This is a support program, that helps support students who are first generation at Columbia. The program has various different components. It was often has a seminar series that helps students learn more about what's available here in terms of academic support, in terms of libraries. But it also has a co-curricular aspect where they introduce to connect students or introduce them to various different internship opportunities, or they do on-site visits to various different companies. It's really designed to help students learn more about Columbia, make up for, say, maybe the lack of information they might already have because they don't have, their parents haven't gone to college. They may not have siblings that haven't gone to college, and so it helps fill that gap. But also helps build support amongst the community. They can learn from each other, and they can share. And this is a program that if you are a student who's first in your family to go to college, there'll be outreach towards you to you telling you about the opportunities for the program. So look for an email that would be coming from the First and Family program. Can we move the next slide? Sorry, this is just yet another picture of our space, just to remind you where we are. In these before COVID, our space would be crowded with students. After COVID, a lot of students still want to do things virtually. So the advising appointments are offered either virtually or in person. And hopefully you'll take advantage of the in-person opportunities and be able to come and see the space, because it is really quite beautiful, even though we've been occupying this space since 2010. It still has a somewhat a new look to it. And hopefully you'll be able to see for yourself. And lastly, I think, is our opportunity to do questions. We've been very vigorously answering your questions in the Q&A. So we don't have that many that have not been answered.
Andrew, before we start with Q&A, I forgot to say something. Do you mind if
Sure.
I interject here? So, one of the questions reminded me, I meant to tell everybody that for those students who are planning for pre-health curriculum, planning to prepare for medical school or dental school, we are doing a separate session specifically geared to the pre-health curriculum. And, really getting you ready for the first semester and getting, and really giving you a lot more in-depth information about that. That is currently planned for Monday, August 12th at 3 p.m. It will be on the Countdown to Columbia calendar. And we hope that all of you who are interested in that area or thinking about pre-med will come to that session and learn all about the pre-health curriculum.
There was first questions just about how GPA and credits work. The way it works, credits does matter in terms of your GPA because it's your grade times your credit, which ultimately is the value of the class. So when you're calculating GPA, it's the overall value of the grade, the overall value of the credit combined together, and then divided by the number of credits to formulate the GPA. So a 4-point class, if you do get an A+ in a 4-point class, it'll have more impact on your GPA than an A+ in a 3-point class. How does the transition from minors to concentrations work for comp sci at Cs? Will minors and tracks like the digital systems and robotics be available? First off, there's been no change in the C's curriculum. The minors that I've mentioned were only in the college. So what you will see in the C's bulletin is the minors that are available to you. There is one general minor in computer science in C's. There's no specialized minors. And if you're thinking about, if you are going to be a CS major, the CS department has moved away from organizing their major in tracks. They want students to have much more freedom in terms of selections of their classes and formulate their own, and be able to pursue their interests without being confined to a particular track. So it's less formalized than it has been in the past. How can we join the CSA advising sessions and support groups? I'm not exactly sure if you're referring to some of the support groups that Megan has mentioned, or if you're referring just to advising in general. If you are connecting to your CSA advisor, there you would use the appointment system. You would look for the availability of that advisor, and then you can make an appointment. There is some advisors will also have walk-in options, and you can always use that as well. If you're talking about connecting to the peer advising system, that is actually the information of how to do that is actually on our website. When they go live, which I believe is going to be after the first 2 weeks of the semester, is when peer advisors become available. That is when you can make an appointment via that system for them. Tutoring, you have to connect first with your CSA advisor, and then we fill out a form and send it in to the tutoring coordinator, and ultimately you're assigned a tutor by then. But then you will have the responsibility for making appointments. Megan, did I leave anything out? I left out getting things done because I think you mentioned how to reach out for that already, but
Yeah, I can just reiterate that. So our website is the best source of information for a lot of the support sort of opportunities. And some of those sort of links are not yet live. They'll go live at the beginning of the semester, and you can fill out interest forms, which will, connect you to us and let us know that you're interested. And then we'll get back in touch to give you a little bit more information about the Getting Things Done sort of program. We just want to make sure that, students know what they are signing up for, so that we have a really dedicated group that joins together for that. But that'll be in the beginning of the semester, and students should really, there's going to be a lot of email that you'll get in the first couple of weeks, but so much rich information. Just make sure you read your email, find those opportunities, and and sign up.
Another student is asking about if the same course has different sections taught by different professors, can they choose which section? So when you are registering for, like, say, a class like Calculus 1, and there are various sections taught by different professors, you can choose to enroll in the section that works best for you in terms of day and time and professor. Some courses, however, are going to be pre-registered, like for the engineers, you will be in either Art of Engineering or the University Writing, and those sections are going to be pre-enrolled for you, just as the college students will be in a particular pre-enrolled for a particular Lit Hum section, and either University Writing or Frontiers of Science. And so those you would not have the option to choose unless you do want to switch sections based on the timing that you're enrolled in, or the subject. And you can work directly with your advising dean to work through some of those conflicts that you may see that would require you to have your pre-registered courses changed.
So the next question I see is, can you explain the process of placing exams, especially for math? This is kind of highly specialized. You might be better off having a conversation with your Center for Student Advising advisor, but the math department has on its website guidance about how you can place into math based on previous scores, higher level math, if you're IB, College Board, or A levels. You should look at that if you're a college student and follow that. Engineering is a little bit different. There is a placement exam, and there'll be information about the placement exam that'll be available. So for engineers, you can start with Calc 1 according to the college guideline, the guidelines that the math department has. You can start with Calc 2 based on the guidelines the math department has on their website. But if you were looking to go into multivariable calculus as your first math course, then there are different rules that apply. And if you have a 5 on the BC exam, the College Board exam, you can place into it. If you do not have a 5 on that College Board, because you never took that exam, if you have IB or anything else, then you can take a placement exam to see that's available to you. That information will be on the CSA website as it's available. But until then, you should talk to your CSA advisor for those kinds of questions.
Student asked, when will they be able to connect with their CSA advisor, or when will they know who their CSA advisor is? All students have received an email from the Center for Student Advising last Thursday. So please check your Columbia email. That really is a plug for us to really promote you checking your Columbia email. It's super important because all official communication will be sent to your Columbia email directly. Of course, you can link your Columbia email to a personal email and get everything through that, but you are responsible for all the information that gets sent to you, including your advisor's name. So you'll find all that information there, and then you will also have a follow-up email directly from your CSA advisor explaining how you can make an appointment with them prior to the new student orientation program.
There is also a question about when can a student submit their AP exams. You should rather actually send it in immediately. That goes through to admissions, and then it's loaded into the main information system, and we can access this. That is if it's College Board. If you have a IB diploma, the admissions office will pull that and add it to the file for us. If you've done A levels or French bac, you would want to bring the original certificate to your advisor so we can then make a copy of it for ourselves and later assess you and award you the points. You should all know, if this hasn't been clear, is that we don't award AP credit until after your first year because it has to be attached to a term you've already completed for our system to read it correctly. So this is something that you don't have to do immediately, but you do need it. Often know that it's information in terms of your placement, and we can talk to you about the placement, but the points might be added um, in the summer after your first year. The next question is about internships. I can't say that there is going to be a lot of, I mean, it's especially a question, can a first year student get an internship? This is really a question you want to follow up with the Center for Career Education. There certainly have been first year students who've got internships, more likely after the year, but not necessarily during the year. It might not be the thing you want to do right away in your first semester, is try to pursue an internship, because many of them might be already, those positions might already be filled, but also you want to settle in as a student. You want to be able to, you know, give it, learn about your courses, learn about your new work rhythm, make new friends. There's a lot of demands on your time and you want to be able to address all those things sufficiently. And you don't want to necessarily then put all your energies also into pursuing an internship as well. I think this is a good point. Take a little pause. And Angie, I don't know, Megan, if you have any advice you would want to give the first year's students about how they might want to approach how much they should be doing in their first semester or in their first year.
I guess I would just want to say that just because you can do lots of things doesn't mean that you should or have to. When I was mentioning courses and trying to figure out like say as a college student whether to take 4 or 5 classes, you certainly can start with 5 classes and plan that upon consultation with your CSA advisor. But taking 4 would be fine. I think transitioning into this new environment and trying to get comfortable with meeting new friends and being in a new space and sleeping in a different bed than you're not used to, and maybe even sharing a room when you never had to before in your life, like all of that affects your academics. And so and to have to like feel as though you have to do so much, like be participating in 5 different clubs or organizations on campus while taking a full load of courses, I don't think it is necessary. I think it makes sense for you to try to figure out which, maybe 2 things or 3 things you do want to actively engage in while you're here. And sometimes it does take you going to initial club meetings to experience whether they're good fits for you or not. But it just sometimes just takes some time. And I do feel as though sometimes students transition here could be rough, more challenging than expected sometimes. And you can still talk with your advising dean about that too, about what about your transition is not as smooth as you anticipated, right? Because during orientation, new student orientation program, it's going to be a lot of rah rah and happy people and upper class students really excited to welcome you here onto campus because they truly are genuinely excited for you to come and join us, just like we are. But sometimes that it may not be internally how you're feeling. You may be overwhelmed by it. The rah rah may turn you off. Like, don't worry about that. Like, we will help in any way we can to ensure that you're as comfortable as possible to continue to still be here and flourish academically and personally.
I think Angie said it really well. And I'm not sure I have very much to add. I think it just, you have 4 years here. There's no huge rush. It's really good to just get settled and make friends and get to know the city. And, and I think that's get on your feet. And I think that's the best way to get started.
So going back to the questions, there's a lot of questions about AP. So for example, one transfer student's asking, is it a different timeline? It's really not a different timeline for transfer students, because the limitation of our system is we have to attach it to a semester you've completed. So the earliest any transfer credit, AP credit could be added is after your first semester. We generally do it over the summer because sometimes the credit is also, you only get credit if you completed a different class. Like for example, for AP math, you have to get a C or higher in the next level math class in order to get the credit. So we try to do this all in one all at one time and not do it, piecemeal over the course of time. Ultimately, as long as it's on your record by the time you graduate, that is the key thing. But you have to be patient, and it's not going to appear immediately. But this is again the type of thing that your CSA advisor is here to help you with. So you can ask these more particular questions to them. I wouldn't do that in your first meeting because it may not be all that pertinent except for placement. But you want to be able to follow up with them because they ultimately are the ones who are going to add the credit to your record. There is a question about study abroad that when's a good time. I mean, first off, you can always look up the programs. You're not limited to looking for study abroad programs when you're planning to do it like a semester before. You can do research. You can talk to people in the UGE about the programs. But you definitely you should be already talking to your advisor within the first semester, because if you have to learn the language for the program, the timing is critical. But as I said, generally for the college, it's junior year or senior year. Some students do in their senior year. You're not allowed to go study abroad until you completed your contemporary civilization, which is a sophomore level course. So you have to do it after your junior year. And for engineering, it's tied often to the structure of the major. So the sophomore year is the year for a lot of engineers. It's usually the spring because sophomore, fall, you're still doing critical courses for your science courses, for foundational courses for your major. But again, that's a conversation where your CSA advisor could help you navigate this. There is a question, I think, just in general about the CSA advisor is like, can they switch? You can switch. I don't know why you would want to do it immediately. Hopefully you haven't had a not so pleasant conversation so far. But anyway, you're not, it's not a lifetime a 4-year contract. Yes, we want ideally how you had the same advisor for all 4 years. But if, like all relationships, sometimes it doesn't really quite work out and you feel like you'd be more comfortable with a different advisor, and then you would talk to me and we would discuss your options and then see whether or not switching advisors makes sense. But you should at least work with your current advisor, your assigned advisor, for your first semester. Where can one submit ACP scores? That would be information that should be provided you by admissions. You want to look through what you have been provided and follow up upon their guidelines. Normally what happens is, like if it's College Board, it's really quite simple. It's just simply going to the College Board website. You want to use a certain code for Columbia Submissions Office, and then you send that, you just ask the College Board to send it electronically. I think the number is 2116. Correct me if I'm wrong, Angie. I don't know if you remember. But that once you enter that, the College Board will be sending the information to the appropriate office in here. For IB and others, you would best off bringing that directly to your advisor when you're on campus. So how you were assigned as advisors? There's a lot of different ways we assign and things that we look into. For example, if you're on an athletics team, there's one advisor who works with that team. So everybody is assigned to that advisor. So there's a lot of different factors involved, but I don't think I can't say there's one rule that applies to all, but you will, if you are curious, we can look more into the question. But there's different, like I said, it often depends on whether you're part of a program, whether you're athletics, whether you're in engineering, it's by your major. So there are various different factors we look at when we're doing this. So there are getting a lot of questions about placements and assessments, Angie. Maybe I don't know if you want to take those or just in general talk about how language placement is done and assessments done prior to the first semester, the beginning of the semester.
Sure. We actually have many in-person foreign language placement exams during orientation. Some of the placement exams, like the bigger ones, like say Spanish, are exams that are just taken online, so you can do prior um, to coming onto campus for the new student orientation. It is an exam that roughly takes 15 or 20 minutes, and you would immediately get a score which corresponds to either exemption from the foreign language requirement or a score that corresponds with a particular course within the sequence of the language. We do have an academic resources fair during new student orientation program where all departments will be represented in this fair, right? You can go up to each of the tables for departments that you're interested in, areas of study. So, and including these language coordinators for all of the languages, there will be a representative. So you will have time to engage with them about your particular background in that language. So for instance, a lot of our students come as native speakers who can speak their native tongue, their family's language of origin, but may not be able to write it. And so when you talk through what specific course is best for you, then you would be able to then act accordingly when it's time for you to register to choose the right class that fits your proficiency in the language. You could also, based on AP, exempt from some things or SAT 2 for some subjects. There will be, beyond language, there are info sessions for math and chemistry, for both the college and engineering, for math, a physics info session. So all of that information will be available to you and is accessible through our Center for Student Advising website. And all of this information will be available to you via your CSA advisor. So when you do meet with them in person, or via Zoom or via phone before NSOP, you can ask them specifically about which placement exams you should be taking. If you have any like a strong music understanding and knowledge, you may be able to place out of music humanities, which is one of the core courses that is required for all Columbia College students, and one of the core options that is available for Columbia engineering students. And so that exam is on September 6th. There's only one exam. And to get more information about that music hum exam, you can ask that directly from your advisor. Another student had just asked, like, when will you be reached out by your CSA advisor? It will be very soon. So please just keep an eye out on your email, and you will get a direct email from your advisor with explicit information on how to make an appointment with your advisor. And we have an online appointment system that will allow you to log in and see all of the available times. It's the same system that you'll use throughout your 4 years to make an appointment, not just now prior to NSOP, but even during NSOP and then after.
Another question that seems to be some confusion over minor versus concentration. So the question was related to political science and international relations, where they said, well, is a concentration in international relations going to be available? That is actually not the language, how the school works. So concentration was a separate program. You could do a major in political science, you could do a concentration in political science, and then within the concentration, you could have a primary field of international relations. So nothing has changed in terms of that. In terms of the major, you can do a primary field of international relations. So this is one reason why the college ultimately wanted to get rid of the word concentration, is because of the confusion associated with it. So you could be in history and concentrating in your mind in early modern history, but that's not the formal term for it within the departmental structure. So there was a big push to get rid of the word concentration simply because there's so much confusion about what it actually means. In addition to introducing minors, which are smaller in size than concentrations had been in the past. So it allows students to have more variety of academic opportunities, where they might do one major and 2 minors. Before, if they did a major and a concentration, there really wasn't much space to do anything else. There is a question from a C student about availability about core classes. You are obliged as a C student to enroll in certain numbers of core classes, because there is a non-tech requirement part of your major. So you will be taking university writing as part of that. That's a core class. You'll have the option to do Lit Hum CC or the Global Core. So you have to do either art or music hum. So yes, you will be able to take these core classes and register for them the same way a college student registers for them. You will not be pre-registered in any core class. So unlike why college students are pre-registered in Lit Hum their first year, that will not be true for engineers, but you will be able to take them if you can. There's a space. If you want to take it, you can take it. But most C students, if they're doing Lit Hum or CC, they do it as a sophomore. But that's also, these are a lot of the questions we're getting are very specific, and they really are questions that you should be following up with your CSA advisor. So if we don't get through all your questions today, and I don't think we will, because it's now grown to 22, I see on the list, and we only have what, I think 5 more minutes? No, 1 minute left in the webinar. So do not be upset that your questions are not addressed, because this is one reason why you do have a CSA advisor. This is actually a good advertisement for why you should have a CSA advisor, because you have lots of questions, but they're there to help you answer them. And so in terms of, questions about placement exams and things like that, that information will be available on our website as it comes in. So there's a special section that will be having that. There is also, the academic resource guide is something you can go back to and look to and refresh your memory about. It also explains the differences between a table for a college board versus IB and AP. IB and A levels. IB and A levels, we give credit by the subject. It's not tied to that table. So if you got an IB score, a higher level, 6 or 7 in a subject that's taught at Columbia, you can get credit for it, but it has to be a subject taught at Columbia. So some of these subjects, they might be more specialized, they might be interdisciplinary, they might not actually automatically be connected to a subject that's taught at Columbia. So again, these are all points that your CSA advisor can help you walk you through. So the information is available in the academic resource guide. It's also available in the college bulletin and the C's bulletin. Even though the new bulletins are not up, that information has remained the same. So you can consult last year's and it's still accurate. So you can always use those resources, but ultimately if you don't have if you're not satisfied with your answer, you still have questions, you want to talk to your CSA advisor. And on that note, I think we can end the webinar, and I thank you for all joining us. And I do hope that you do follow up with your CSA advisor, especially those 20 some odd people who have asked questions and we have not yet addressed them. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have for between now and when you move in, you're able to get answers to your questions, participate in these webinars, but also enjoy yourself and relax a bit, and because you do want to come into Columbia well rested and ready for the new year.